Welcome to the NBA Hangout presented by Playbook Sports. I'm your host, Brandon. With me, as always, is Dave. Dave, how are you?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm doing good. Another week to talk about some more stuff that happened in the NBA. So a little recap of last night's NBA Cup games we can get into. Some trade rumors have started to fizzle, including Jimmy. That's been loud and out there. Maybe some Darkhorse MVPs. What's going on with Denver? A lot to talk about. How is your week in the NBA world?
It was a bit sad. Scotty Barnes got hurt, so that's just
never stay healthy. Them Raptors.
That's the local fandom. Otherwise, it was a good week. More just gearing up for like yesterday's Cup games. That was it's all about the NBA Cup right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sure is. Yeah. It's definitely about the NBA Cup, and we had some good ones last night. Two close games. We had one with the Magic and the Bucks, and the second one after that what followed that was the OKC and the Mavericks. A rematch of the conference semifinals last year. First, I guess we could talk about a little bit of the Bucks and the Magic game, which unfortunately was missing Franz Wagner and Paolo Banchero, but I think they're getting Paolo soon. Friends will be out for a while, so we don't get to see them play together, which is really what we want to see them do. But the way the Magic have been playing, it looks like they'll still find a way to stay afloat in the top of the East out there this year. But first thoughts on that game, on the Bucks game.
Yeah, it was a great what if game because you're watching it and you're thinking to yourself like, what if they had just like one of these guys, right? And it's unfortunate for right now, but like the Magic are still going to look good come playoff time. And that's what's really important. Let's not forget that the two teams that played in the finals in the NBA Cup last year didn't do very spectacularly when it came to the actual playoffs. So it's a tale of two seasons in a way, right? It's like Cup season and then it's like the actual NBA championship. And I think if you're a Magic fan, like the Cup was fun, but it's really about growth in the NBA championship this year and seeing if or what you might need to make your team a championship team beyond what you have currently.
Yeah, I think that's just it for it. These are just kind of like benchmarks for them. It was good for them to get in and good to get into like a competitive game to, kind of simulate that playoff atmosphere, even if they don't have their full guys. One guy that really stood out to me, I guess, for the Magic, since not everyone, but since their main guys are gone, Jalen Suggs. Like I harped on his contract. I remember when he first signed it in the offseason, I was a little surprised about it. But I knew the defense was worth it. But seeing the offense starting to come together now on a little more consistent basis. In that game, he had 32 points. 32 points, 9 rebounds, only 1 assist. So that's a little strange for him. But 4 steals, 1 block, which is what you're going to get from Jalen Suggs on the defensive end, which is just good stuff. And seeing his growth throughout the year, throughout the years, and this year in particular as well, has been good to watch as he becomes one of the core pieces alongside Paolo and Franz on this team. And for the Bucks, I guess this is a good. I think the Cup is good for them in the sense that they had such a bad start to the season. Like they're like looking like Philly for a while there, and they've been able to climb their way back into like a playoff position, playing position in the NBA and the Eastern Conference. So I think this is good for them to keep building those winning habits, keep getting over the hump because they're a team that wants to be competitive. They have Dame, they have Giannis. Giannis playing at some of the best basketball he's been playing in his career. So to have all that come together for them, I think this Cup will do wonders for them and their confidence just moving forward and throughout the season that they can really start to trust this group and get some wins with them.
Yeah, it's really nice to see that the Bucks are beginning, like Damon and Giannis are beginning to both figure out how to get theirs on the same night,
Yeah.
Because it felt early on like a team that was like, oh, tonight will be your night, Dame, and tomorrow I'll take it, right?
Yeah.
Back to Jalen Suggs, though. Do you foresee Suggs as, the long-term solution at point guard for the Magic, or do you think he's more the off guard, more of an Alex Caruso, somebody who could play point guard should you need him to, but maybe is better suited as, an extra ball handler, secondary playmaker, but really kind of that floor spacing, point of attack defender, somebody in a maybe not quite a traditional 2-guard role, but not a traditional point guard
role. Yeah, I could see something like a Mario Chalmers, like Derek Fisher type, like that type of role as a point guard where they don't do too much of the ball handling, but they're still there to kind of get the guys set. Like I think in modern NBA right now, like a great pairing would be him and like Tyler Hero. I think that would be kind of perfect as your backcourt. You have a guy to cover everything on the defensive end. You have a guy to do most of the shooting and some of the secondary playmaking. Because I think Tyler Hero still is a guy that he plays point guard right now and he can do guard things, but that's not like what he should be doing all the time. I think Jalen Suggs is a guy who can like handle the ball to start possessions and to get guys in place because he did have that vision coming out of college and he was like a good passer and stuff like that, but I think dominating the ball for like a whole possession is a little much for him, but to have a guy like Tyler and or like that would be a good court partner for him in the future. So even a guy like, we're gonna talk about some rumors later, but one that now that we're talking through like partners and stuff like that, I'm just thinking of a guy like even Levine, who's been kind of out there, who can kind of just like score the ball, and he's been doing it pretty efficiently this year as well. I think would make for like a good backcourt partner for someone like Jalen Suggs moving forward.
Magic would be one of the few teams who could afford a Levine. They'd have to send back like they'd probably have to send back like a Carter plus, because Levine's contract is pretty big. But they would have, in my opinion, they would have the pieces, and they could use the idea of Zach LaVine. Let's put it that way.
Right.
Zach's been good this year, but he's up and down.
Yeah. Whatever that build is what they can use to fill that gap. And I think that would take that team to a whole new level, even with Paulo and friends coming back. But yeah, that's I think that's good on that first game. Bucks looking better. They should continue to get better. I think we also forget that like two dominant star players like that often take a long time to mesh. Like even Wade and LeBron, that took like a season. They made it to the finals the first year, but like that was basically off of just being better than everybody individually. But learning how to play as a team, that came like the second year together. I think sometimes with like these dominant players, we expect it to happen faster because they're such great players. But it can take some time. And I think now we're starting to see it kind of start to gel and make a little more sense as they progress through the season. The second game. Go ahead.
I agree with you on the Bucks. Like it's just finally beginning to look like the vision, and you have to just ask yourself, was it in the nick of time or is it too late? Like, can they pick themselves up and believe in this group, or has enough doubt been sown into them to question whether or not they can actually go for more than, a great stretch here or there?
Right. Yeah. That's what they'll have to figure out. And hopefully this NBA Cup gives them a little more clarity. Second game of that of Tuesday night was OKC versus the Mavericks, which, like we mentioned, was a rematch of a playoff matchup last year. Thing that stood out to me was one, Shai's just playing crazy offense, doing crazy stuff on the offensive end this year, outscoring both Kyrie and Luka combined. He had 39, them combined had 33. But I think like that's a crazy stat. But I think what speaks louder to that stat is the Thunder defense, like just how dominant it can be to even lock down two of the most prolific scorers that the NBA has right now. Two of the best playmakers the NBA has right now. They completely shut them down. They're aggressive blitzing them. They're making them uncomfortable. There's a little video going around of Dort pinching up Luka in various parts of the game. They're down to do like some of the dirty stuff, just not dirty, but like some of the stuff you got to do to make great players feel just a little bit uncomfortable. And they're doing this without a Defensive Player of the Year candidate in Chet Holmgren. So when he comes back, I can only imagine what how much better this defense can even be if it's looking this good right now. I think the additions of Hartenstein and Caruso have been like excellent, perfect fits for them, especially Hartenstein. I think he's added a great boost to that front court and one that they haven't really seen before.
Yeah, and you could suggest that last year in like the playoffs, the reason Dallas got by Oklahoma was like they were able to kind of like play bigger down low, and Hartenstein completely gobbles that up now. Like if he's not the largest man on the court, he's playing as if he's the largest man on the court. And that's like he's just been so impressive. Like such a perfect fit. I remember when they got him, I was like, oh ho hum, Isaiah Hartenstein. Like he'll fill a need, but it won't be like exciting. And the way he's played, like it's exciting. Like it's
exciting. Yeah.
You know, he's been unbelievably effective in this role. Like you talk about putting players in positions to succeed. That's exactly what Oklahoma's done with him. Like he was good in New York, but he's been like unbelievable in Oklahoma.
Yeah, it's just on a whole other level. It's just a perfect. And once Chet gets there, I'm really curious as to how that all looks together. Because one, they could play them together. They probably will play them together at times. Because Chet's good enough on the perimeter to allow that to happen. And two, you can split them. You can have Chet on as a 5. Sometimes he's used to it. He played it early on the season last year as well, basically all last season. And Hartenstein's used to it as well. He's doing it right now. He's done it most of his career. So yeah, I think it's a great look for Hartenstein to finally get this role for him. He had moments in I believe it was the Clippers before, and then he had moments in the Knicks last year. But I think this is just a really nice fit for him. And for the Mavs, who have been playing really well, I think that depth is starting to lurk itself out just a little bit more and more once they get into these tighter games. Like when you're able to slow down Doncic and Kyrie, it makes it really like it makes the defense not have to work nearly as much as they do for some other team, just because the versatility on the offensive attack isn't always there. I know they've experimented a little more this year, like playing Luka off ball a bit more than they have in the past, like Kyrie handled a bit. But it's still coming down to basically 2 guys creating majority of their stuff. And I think that might cause an issue like come playoff time. Just that lack of like offensive versatility coming from their depth.
Yeah, well, it's the thing about Dallas is it's like it's all built around those 2 guys, right? And even when Dallas didn't look great early in the year, it's because Luka wasn't playing like an MVP candidate. He was playing great, but he was playing good, but he wasn't playing like great. And then he stepped up his game, and it all makes sense, right? All the pieces start to make sense because it's built around maximizing those players. So by Oklahoma shutting down both of them, like they took away the entire Dallas game plan, and maybe that is like the best thing for Dallas to know right now, in that like you have to find someone else who can do some playmaking, who can use the pieces that you have put together, right? The shooters, the cutters, make the offense run. Can you find a big who can pass?
Yeah, I think those are all questions that they need to find answers for. And they got Klay Thompson in the offseason to kind of boost that offensive attack a little bit because he's that shooter.
But he's a shooter, right? He's not creating
exactly. He's not creating anymore. And he's become more and more of a liability on the defensive end, which I think he only played 27 minutes last night. He did have 19 points, but I think part of the reason why they're not paying him longer is because of the defense, especially against a team like OKC, where you have guys who can just attack you, like with Shea and Jalen, who relentless, and the way that they attack you too, like just want to get to that rim, get to their spot. So I think that's a bit of an issue. Like I said, he had 19 points. in a short amount of time. So like he's still able to shoot that ball. But yeah, when you're looking at creation and just someone who you can rely on to kind of be that release valve, like when we talk about like those, I guess we're just gonna talk about them big three, the big three a lot today. With Bosh and Wade, or with Bosh and with LeBron and Wade, they had a Bosh who was that release valve, who like when those two guys didn't really have it going together, they could pop it out to Bosh. He might hit a jumper. He can carry the offense for a couple possessions. They could run some stuff through him. I think it doesn't have to be as good as a player as a Bosh, but they need somebody like that for them in their role to kind of step up and help out those two guys when they don't have it going.
Well, and that's the key, right? Like, honestly, no team can afford to put together like that proper big three and have enough balance. Like, probably the closest thing right now would be Phoenix, just with Booker, Beal, and Durant. But they don't. There's not even balance amongst the big three in that team, let alone the supporting pieces. So, like, if you're Dallas, you're looking for somebody in the Bosh like role and position, but you either need like a veteran whom you can call upon 30 games out of the year, right? Yeah. Or you just need somebody cheap who's effective. Because you're just not going to fit it in with the weird apron style cap system and everything. Like you need, and we're learning more and more that depth has become the way to build a team right now. It's like young, athletic depth. If you have that, chances are you're a good team. Oklahoma's a good team. Houston's a good team. The Magic are a good team. Boston's obviously a very good team, but like the teams on the rise were the teams that weren't even like that good last year. Like Detroit, young and athletic, beginning to show, right? Portland, young and athletic, beginning to like have some embers of something, right? And the teams that are more and more building this way are the teams that are finding success under this new apron style, or at least this season. The days of like creating big threes, like it's so prohibitive to do now. So
the only chance you really get to do it is if you're on you guys are young. They gotta be on that like rookie.
They're on rookies. Yeah,
the rookie contract, or that second one, which isn't too crazy. But yeah, they have to be young, and they have to. So you would have had to hit on your draft pick, like really well. Like the drafting really matters, and this last draft wasn't, so. You have to hit on those draft picks, and you have to make sure you build out that way as well. As soon as you have something that looks like a star, you kind of have to find ways to build around it, which is kind of like what OKC has been able to do. They have the one star and shit that they paid, but Chet and Jalen are still not being paid as the players they are yet. So until then, you have all this time to make all these moves. Then you gotta make some tough decisions later. But that's a later problem.
That's a tomorrow problem. Yeah.
Anything more in the NBA Cup? Like tonight we're recording. There's some games. There's a game going on right now. There'll be a game later. So right now, Atlanta's playing New York, and they are up by about 6 points or something like that, maybe 10 points. Single digits. Let's just go with that. And they might advance to the next round and play the Bucks, which would be how you called it and not how I called it. About 3 minutes left in this game. Yeah, so we'll see. We'll get the results of this before we head out of here. But looking good for your Hawks.
Hawks gonna win it all, baby. Come on.
They just might.
Believe in Trey.
Believe in Trey. I got to now. NBA Cup setting. I gotta believe in Trey.
New York's ultimate villain, Trey Young.
Oh yeah, this is that rivalry. I always forget about that. He does like to show out. He does like to show it against the Knicks, and the Knicks are at home. Trade rumors, trade season. It's upon us. Some stuff are being talked about. And I don't know if happening. Stuff are being talked about. The rumors have started. I guess that December date's coming up quick, and then you have your January date with people being eligible to be traded. So some tidbits to start off with. I guess we can start with the Jimmy and the Sham stuff. So the last couple weeks, or last week I should say, more and more we're hearing from Shams that there will be teams. Miami's willing to listen to the Jimmy trades, and there's a couple of teams that are at the forefront of those talks. So teams that we know of are Dallas Mavericks, Houston Rockets, and Golden State Warriors. Today, he came out with another report suggesting that the Suns would be also one of those teams that would be interested in trading for Jimmy Butler. How they would do so still remains a mystery. Don't know quite how they get there, but that is a team that is also, I guess, looking, according to Shams, as looking at Jimmy Butler as a possibility. The interesting note, though, was today after the Suns report was made, Jimmy's agent, Bernie Lee, came out and kind of refuted the whole thing and kind of denies being the source for that report. And then on top of that, the Miami Heat owner, Mickey Harrison, did retweet Bernie's tweet, which is also kind of suggesting that then maybe Miami is not listening as much that it might be perceived to be. But from my perspective, first I want to hear your thoughts on it. I want to know what you think about it before I give my take on it.
Well, first let's just talk about his agent, because I've got a lot of thoughts about just like the Heat and Jimmy and what all this could mean. But just on his agent, like it just to me, it just screams like an agent who may have gotten a phone call or two. Maybe one from Jimmy to be like, hey man, like you can't be doing this. Like I'm upset. Like you can't be getting me in trouble with my team like this. And the other one might have come from the Heat to be like, hey, you can't be getting it out in the press that like we're willing to listen, because it puts us at a slight disadvantage when negotiating, because it looks like we're trying to move on from Jimmy Butler, right? Whereas they probably want to be in a position where woo Jimmy Butler away from us with your great trade package, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Versus don't offer us like Kyle Anderson in 2 seconds, like offer us good players,
real stuff.
Yeah, we'll talk about Jimmy Butler.
We'll talk about it.
Yeah.
Which I think it's a good way to look at it as well. I think that's kind of like the perspective like I would have coming off of that. Is like it sounds to me like there are teams that are interested, they want him, especially a team like Golden State would make a lot of sense. And they probably contacted the agent to see like, okay, if we were to make a trade for Jimmy, would he be accepting of being in this environment? And of course, if you're the agent and you're in contract negotiations with Miami, you're going to be like, yeah, they're a team that's looking to win this year, win right now. Jimmy's a win now player, so fit makes sense. And if you're Jimmy and you're looking at the Heat as a team, although if you're looking at the Heat as a team that you're not long for anymore, like maybe you're going in a different direction, I think a team like the Warriors would add up. So I think for some of these reports, I think the smoke means something, and for some of them they're not. Like the Mavs through a different reporter that they're not really looking to make a trade for a superstar at this point. And they're not looking to add on another playmaker of that caliber. They have Luka, they have Kyrie, who can do most of that type of playmaking. So not looking for another guy like that at this moment. And plus, they don't really have much to trade. Houston's GM came out after that report as well to kind of mention that they're not looking to break up that core, which sounded more like we're not just trying to trade. We'll trade, but we're not just trying to trade to just trade. And probably in the offseason, you can talk to us a little bit more. We kind of want to see what this looks like this year under this group, but we'll listen as well. And we'll get more serious closer to maybe in the offseason. And the other team there was Mavs, Golden State, Houston. I think those three teams. And the Suns, like we mentioned, I don't know how much validity they can really get there, but just another contender to put on the list.
So I like the fit of Golden State. It makes a lot of sense to me. The package returning would make sense to me. Something around Jonathan Kuminga, maybe a Moody, just something else in there. Maybe a pick, contract filler. makes a lot of sense. Denver would make a lot of sense for me. If they could make that trade work, if there's enough that Miami would want from a Denver. Playing with Jokic, playing in a win now situation, he becomes instantly takes up that Jamal Murray space from when the Nuggets won the championship. Houston to me, I feel like if they're gonna do something, they want to do something like seismic, like they've got enough good young players. Like, if anything, they have too many good young players to the point where it's like, even trading for Jimmy Butler, they're not going to free up the they're not going to accomplish their other goal of freeing up,
right,
playing time for some of these guys, because it's only going to take like one of the really high end young players,
not going
and
to take
some contract filler, right? Like, he's not. Like, Jimmy Butler is a very good player, but he's not an MVP. He's not going to come into your team and likely be the number one.
He shouldn't. Like, that's part of the he shouldn't be at this point. He's 35. Like, he's a 35-year-old superstar. But he's 35, and you're not going to give up. And he's at the end of his contract. He has leverage. You're not giving up a lot. You're giving up something, but you're not giving up what you would give up for, let's say, like Anthony Edwards. Like, it's gonna be a different tier.
So for me, it's like Houston, I think, is really hoping that Giannis has fair trade this offseason.
Right.
I think
someone of that caliber.
That caliber, closer to that age range as well. So, like, it doesn't make sense for Houston to go after Kevin Durant. It doesn't make sense for them to go after Jimmy Butler. It doesn't make sense for them to go after a Joel Embiid or any of these guys who are maybe no longer ascending, if you will. So I don't like, Houston makes a lot of sense on the surface, but I don't think they make a lot of sense when you get into it. I think Golden State, I think Denver, if they could afford it, I'd love to see him on Cleveland. Right? Like Cleveland's always needed that player, that small forward who can, if you need him to get the buckets, he can get all the buckets. If you need him just to connect the team, the front court to the back court, he can do that as well, right? If you need him to set the tone on defense and get the team going, like, he could do that. I think Jimmy Butler, the more I'm talking about, the more I'm talking myself into him to, like, if they could find a way to add him to the Cavaliers, I think he brings every intangible that they're missing, as well as every like strategic connected player to run different offensive and defensive sets.
I think
that they're currently unable to run.
Yeah, I think Cleveland. Yeah, I think that's a great pull. They haven't been mentioned, but I think that's a team that definitely should be. Like, if Jimmy was available, I think that's the team that definitely should be, interested in that. Like, that would be a great fit. And I think the Denver one too, because Denver in general, like right now, like Jokic is having one of his best seasons, which is crazy to even say that he can have a best season when he's had like three MVPs already.
3 MVPs.
But this might be his best season. But it's kind of, in a way, it feels like it's going to waste a bit with just how this supporting cast is this year. Like, Jamal Murray, you don't know what you're getting each night. Michael Porter Jr. has been better, but you don't know what you're getting each night. I think they need a shake up on that team over there. So I think a guy like Jimmy Butler would make a lot of sense, and it would work nicely with a guy like Jokic. Like, I think the fun thing when you have a guy like Jokic, you can explore moving a guy like Jamal Murray. You can explore moving Michael Porter Jr. You could explore moving some of these guys because he's your center, he's your point guard, he's your small forward. He could be literally whatever you want him to be on the basketball court. And if you're feeling froggy about some of these, other pieces that you have, I feel like if you're Denver in this situation, you've won your championship. You got your one. But Jokic is still in the prime of his career. You need to be looking for that second one, and it's got to come at like whatever it takes right now. Since you've kind of lost some of the depth that you had, you have to regain it in maybe other ways now.
No, 100%. And like I really like that thought that like if they could pull in a Jimmy Butler or a player on the Jimmy Butler like scale, it allows them to be like freer in their thinking around Michael Porter Jr. and Jamal Murray. Which would be like really hard for Denver to pull the trigger on moving those guys. They're championship guys, right?
Mm-hmm. They won the championship. I mean, it's not easy to move those type of guys.
Not easy, but also like especially selling it to your fan base, but also like are those the guys that are going to bring you back to a championship right now? And that's you're right. Like they've won one. They've got no real young players.
I think that's a major question they would have with
like,
Denver.
Just push it all in. Right? What are you losing out on? You know?
Yeah, I think that's just it.
So
if you're Denver, I think that's the way that's the thing that you have to go with these days, especially you have one of the best players in the NBA, if not the best player in the NBA. You gotta make the run. The also interesting thing about those reports coming out about Jimmy is like Miami's in the midst of a 3-game winning streak. When the news broke the other day, Spo kind of looked like confused by all of it. When they asked him about it, Tyler's like, the vibes are great. I don't understand. I don't understand why this trade room is happening right now, but they're playing well. I think if Miami's going to make any type of move at this point in time, they're going to be looking for an addition. They're going to look for something to bolster their chances in a playoff run, whether that's right or wrong for whatever your philosophy is on that. I just feel that's the way that they're going to look at things. I think when they look at the East, they're in like the 5th to 6th range right now. They're on a 3-game winning streak. They win a couple more. They can fight for a home playoff series, home court advantage in the first series, I should say. And if they're looking at it from that perspective, I think they're looking at if we can just buy a player or two, we can play ourselves right back in that mix. So it'll be interesting to see how they navigate this whole situation because from my perspective, the way that the Heat have operated, I don't see them as a team that makes like these big mid-season trades. If they're going to trade a guy like Jimmy, it'll happen in the offseason. But they're always a team that wants to tinker a little bit to kind of make themselves better for the current season. I think that may be where we're headed, but we'll see how it shakes up.
So my question is, has the emergence of Tyler Hero as a special offensive player that can now be counted on pretty consistently changed the timeline of the Heat? Is it no longer the Bam Jimmy timeline so much it is now the Bam Tyler timeline, in that with the emergence of Hero, have the Heat now entered a phase where they should be looking at becoming a younger team and finding their success through youth rather than like last year they tried to add Rozier. Didn't work out as they wanted. I don't think it's been a complete failure, but just hasn't worked out as they wanted. But should they be looking like to me, getting, let's say you get Kuminga and you get Moody, right? So now you have a player to play in Jimmy Butler's space in Kuminga. You have another shooter in Moody. Both guys are young. They're athletic. They can run up and down the court. Do they bring the same intensity? Do they bring the same leadership? No, not at all. Do they bring the same clutch shot making? Not at all. But at the end of the game, is Jimmy still the one that you want with the ball, or do you now want Tyler Hero with the ball? And when Bam Adebayo starts to play like we know he can play, I mean, he hasn't started the year, at his best, but when he gets back to what we've seen him do and start to build on that again, do you want Bam to have the ball at the end of the game, right? So suddenly the hierarchy in the Heat, in my opinion, is it changing? And should the Heat be pursuing that change if it is?
I think yes and no. Yes. Yes, I think both. I think the hierarchy, I think Tyler emerging this year it's added a wrinkle to the Heat in the sense that I think on one hand, I think Jimmy feels a little bit better with the offense with a guy like Tyler Hero kind of at the helm, like being able to carry it for stretches of a game, and when before it felt like it was more on him. I think that hierarchy coming down to the end of the game, like I think right now it's nice because you can have like, depending what type of shot you're looking for, you can go to a different player. Jimmy, you can give it to him if you want to get that 2, go to the line, get fouled or something like that. You could draw something up that way, or you can go the other way if you need a 3. You want a longer shot. You have Tyler Hero there as well, and someone who could kind of create and take a jumper as well. So I think having both options right now is good. But I think moving forward, I think you've kind of entered the Bam Tyler timeline. And like, again, this season will be the biggest indicator of that. By the end of the season, we'll see how that plays out. But I think the way that things are going, the way that Tyler's been playing, and the way that Bam has started to play like the last week or so, like you said, the beginning of the season hasn't been his best basketball. But I think now he's starting to kind of pick up what we know of him. I think you're looking at those two guys to really lead you into that next phase of Heat basketball. So I think pursuing something and looking to move Jimmy to get a little bit younger, or even just find different types of pieces to fit around those two guys that might be a little bit more complementary at this stage, is absolutely what they should be doing. But I think when it comes to Jimmy, he came to the Heat at a time when they weren't going anywhere. Zach Lowe said that they had like one of the bleakest futures that I think the year before he called the Heat to have like the bleakest future. So they weren't really doing much. And then Jamie came in at a time where he kind of elevates you guys back up to like a contending team, a playoff team. You go to the finals, you do all these things. So I think if Jimmy is ready to move on, you make it happen. You get him to the team that he wants to go to because he's done so much for your organization in that sense. But I think they're going to hold on and be a little sentimental with moving on from him. And it's going to take like a lot, like a huge offer for them to like move off of him during the season. I think them listening is just doing their due diligence of being like, okay, if we get to this point, we know which teams are interested. We kind of know the framework of what we would need to get to, what players we're interested in from each of these teams. But I feel like the offseason is the real time where, and a lot of your leverage will be lost there as the Heat, though, once the offseason starts. But I think that's where they're going to look to see, okay, are we signing this guy long term? Is he moving on from us? What do we want to do with that situation? But I think the question that you asked is, the Bam Tyler timeline. I think that is ahead right now. I think that is what we're looking at, staring down right now, and that has to be a reality to everybody kind of in that organization, that this is what it is, and this is what we should be building towards. However you get there, but this is what it should look like moving forward.
And that's really kind of something that I think has been a unique development this year. Like, I don't think going into the year, a lot of people were saying, hey, Tyler Hero is going to really evolve, come forward, and start to change the way that the Heat are going to think about the way that they roster build going forward. Because Tyler Hero, let's be honest, Tyler Hero was
a change of speed. Is it?
Yeah, it's a change of speed, but Tyler was the player that was in every trade rumor. Like, he was the player that they wanted to get rid of.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. So it's a good problem to have if you're a member of the Heat or a Heat fan.
Yeah.
But
for sure, definitely changes space. Being the guy, Tyler Hero, always in the trade rumors. Always, yeah. He's the one. He's gonna be the guy that gets you the next whale. To now be the guy that might permanently just stay because he's part of a rebuild. Which is, I've seen something float out there like, if they trade Jimmy, they might as well trade Hero too. Which I'm not really grasping that one. That one doesn't really connect with me.
What's
right
Hero?
Now. 24. Like, if you're gonna trade Jimmy, then you're in this new. He's 24. I know I know he's like in his 6th season, but like, he's 24. He's still very young. Yeah, you're getting like his best season right now. I don't think you really want to. Sure, he's at his peak, so you'll get the most from him right now that you've ever would have gotten for him. But he's also 24, and you want to build with a guy like that. I would think.
You want to have a player in their peak, right? Like, why is it if you're going to trade Jimmy, you got to trade Tyler? Why isn't it trade Bam?
Yeah.
Why not trade all three? I don't think that's the case.
If you're gonna do that, just blow the whole thing.
Yeah, like, and maybe this is me not being like a Heat fan, but I just like, I don't see Jimmy Butler quite at that, like you called him a superstar, and he probably fits every like criteria to be a superstar, but to me he would be like last on that list or first on the next list kind of thing. Like he's in that he's that fringe. Like he's to me is like the level of player who is just attainable at like at a trade deadline. Like honestly, I never think we're gonna see like a Giannis traded or a LeBron traded or Kevin Durant at the deadline anymore, right? Like
but Jimmy is that type of player that
Jimmy, I thought there's enough good young players and salary fillers that could maybe pull it off. Plus, like the weird offseason thing between him and Pat Riley. Like, I don't know. I thought there was enough animosity there. He's good. He's good enough that like an opposing team would really want to trade for him. Like he's a big enough difference maker that you really want to add him to your team, especially in the second half of a year where you know like you've got a certain portion of the year where you know how he's playing, you know how he plays towards the end of the years, right? Like you know you've got a certain version of him for this season. He's going to come in, he's going to be a difference maker. Plus he's just affordable enough to do it without like for some of these teams without like completely
destroying it.
Completely restructuring your franchise. Like I don't know, can he go to Golden State without giving up like an Andrew Wiggins? Like is there enough contracts there that he can just add to the group versus like break up a significant part of it? Like when people talk about him going to Houston, they're always like, well, Dillon Brooks will have to come back. And it's like, yes, Jimmy Butler is a much better version of Dillon Brooks. However, together, especially if they keep like a Tari Eason, like it could be menacing in
it could be terrorizing. It could be terrorizing.
It would be awful to play. And Almond Thompson somehow you're on there, and then Şengün. Like it would be such a weird and fun lineup. But you know, like to me, Jimmy occupies that like very perfect narrow lane of like the attainable superstar, if you will. And that there's not many guys like that, right? Like he might be the only quote unquote obtainable superstar that wouldn't have to wait for an off season to be added to a team.
Yeah, I think that's exactly why his name has been floated out there the most, because it makes only the most sense that he can be got. I think he could be got. And when I say superstar, I mean superstar more so in like the playoff sense. Like when it comes to playoff time, he's like more of a superstar there, but like he's not like a seasoned superstar. Like he's not giving you those type of games throughout the season. It's very contained to a certain time period, as you said, a certain time of the year. Like that's when you know you're getting the best Jimmy, and he'll give you some spikes throughout the season just to make it fun along the ride. But yeah, lots of stuff with Jimmy. I think we had other trade rumors to talk about, but we can talk. Well, Cavs were looking for a wing. Jimmy's a wing, so we figured that one out. Solve that issue.
Easy. Come on. 4 teams trade for Jimmy. Just share them. Right? You send the Heat picks and prospects.
I think the other one that really stood out to me is the Warriors. I think the Warriors are going to be a team, what sounds like a team that want to be extremely aggressive to get some type of help for Steph. They had a really good start to the season. They've kind of middled off a little bit these last couple of weeks, but then the last couple of games, they've looked alive again, beating like Minnesota and stuff. So a little bit of up and down-ish season for them. They're still one of the top teams in the West, but they clearly see that they have something here. They clearly see that Steph still has some in the tank, and they can win a championship if they have the right pieces around them. So the report floating out there is that they're looking for a star player to join that cast, which is hard to do right now. But I guess the two players that they're mainly looking at, Jimmy Butler, as we've mentioned, and LeBron James, which is kind of crazy. But still a thing. Still can happen with the way that Lakers have been playing. And then the other report out there with the Warriors is that if they can't land one of those two guys, they'll go to looking for depth, like some guys from the Brooklyn, because Brooklyn's going to be some sellers. So your Finney Smiths, your Cam Johnsons, your Dennis Schroeder's, those guys can be kind of on the table if they're not able to get a star level player. So the Warriors, hey, how do you feel about their prospects going into this trade season?
I just hope they're serious. I mean, like every year, since they got like Wiseman and Kuminga and Moody, now they have Pods. It was always like, oh yeah, Golden State, they're gonna make a trade. They're gonna get another star. They're gonna find a Kevin Durant again, and they haven't done it. And so, I hope it's just not reports. Like it could be really exciting and fun, and it could bring Golden State right back into the global narrative again. Because like they have been kind of like fading from the spotlight. Like they're playing well, but they're not newsmakers right now, right? Like LeBron James makes them newsmakers.
Yeah. They got you that shine right back. Yeah, it's interesting. Like I think they're missing that. They don't have that. Like they don't have that same cachet that they used to have when it comes to media spotlight and all that type of stuff, which I think is why they're a little bit anxious for one. I think the one player that I think they can circle back on is Lauri Markkanen. They really wanted him in the offseason. They didn't get him. So I wonder if this time around, come trade deadline, they're even more aggressive in their pursuits of getting him. I think they're trying to keep Kuminga in some of these deals, which is kind of making it tough for them to get the player that they want, because I think Kuminga is the piece. You have to move him if you want to get the player. I know it kind of I know you're kind of building him up to be the Draymond once Draymond's gone, but at some point you have to look at, are we getting another chip with Steph, or are we building for the future? And they've been towing this line for like 2-3 years now. Since basically they won the last championship in 2022. I feel like they've been in this kind of dance. Are we young? Are we old? Are we young? Are we old? Are we vets? Are we young guys? So I think at some point they have to make that choice. This needs to be kind of that season to do that. If not, then at the end of the season, I think Draymond does not need to be a Golden State Warrior anymore, and they could move on from that and find other ways to build out this team. Because I think Draymond's great. I love him. I love what he brings to the Warriors. I like him sizing up Rudy Gobert the other night and game buying him dunking and trying to do the Steph celebration. All that is fun, but at some point you can't be paying him the way that you're paying him to be that guy anymore, and you kind of need to reset your organization to make sure it's okay in the future. And I wonder if they get to that point. Lauri Markkanen's a guy I'd like to see over there. Vucevic is another name I think that's been kind of floated around there as a lower end guy. I just wonder if they, like you said, I wonder if they actually get to the point where they're able to pull the trigger on any of these moves.
I hope so. Right? Like just from a league-wide entertainment fandom, right? Like it would just, I know what I have in Golden State, and I'd like a shakeup. And is that wrong? Yeah. Like we all want to see, there's a reason the All-Star game used to work. And it was before the days of like League Pass and great cable packages where everybody could watch so many games, and TSN highlights. Like, All-Star games were great because you got to see stars play together, right? Well, like Steph's never leaving Golden State. So we want to see Steph play with different like superstars, all-stars, superstars, some of the best players in the league. Team
That's
USA,
why USA team
so
was
fun.
So much fun. Yeah.
So like we want, selfishly as fans, we want that again. And if Steph's not going to go anywhere, we got to bring people to him, right? So bring him LeBron and Bronny. Please. Their package.
And Bronny. Yeah. He can come too.
Right? Steph can teach him how to actually shoot.
Yeah, help him out. He's got that all covered.
Right? Steve Kerr teach him how to move without the ball. Like Bronny can be a player. He just has to be in Golden State.
Yeah. With his dad, it'll be great. It'll be great. Yeah, I think that's good on the rumors for now because we spent a lot of time on that Jimmy stuff, which I think is the biggest thing going on right now. So we should stay just weird,
Yeah,
but
plus it's like interesting and it's fun. Like honestly, like this Jimmy story is like layers and it's interesting.
yeah,
And however it plays out and however it shakes out really speaks a lot to what's happening behind closed doors, the stuff that we can only like speculate on until a
yeah,
decision happens, right? But yeah, like I don't know, I really like that kind of like Jimmy situation in that like
it
it's
is.
great.
Yeah,
It's a fascinating talking piece.
yeah. It's so
Yeah.
many layers. Like you have the agent involved in it now. You have the Heat brass talking about it. You have Jimmy talking about. You have the players talking about it. So like it is multi-layered. You have other teams inquiring about it. So it's just that it's just one of those fun ones that you don't get all the time. I guess this is the case with Jimmy and when it's contract time. It tends a better word. But yeah, I think the last thing before we head out quickly, some Darkhorse MVPs. Do you have any in mind? So I guess the front runners right now are like the Jokic's, the Sheas, the Doncic's of the world, and the Tatum's.
Okay,
Any
so
any any dark horses?
Jokic is clearly the front runner, so I kind of thought like anybody who wasn't Jokic would be available. So Shea's off the table. Giannis, is Giannis
Yeah,
playing well
Giannis,
enough to be a
he is, but
contender again?
I think he's too close to the top
Too
of
close to the
favorites right now.
top.
So I'll give you like the top 5 in odds right now. I think the Jokic thing, he's third. He's third in the MVP odds right now. Like he's one of the favorites, close to the favorites. The thing with Jokic is that I don't know how their team's going to end up, and I think where they finish might matter a lot to whether or not he gets that MVP. And there might be a little bit of fatigue of just him winning so much recently. Even though what he's doing is, regardless of how many times you voted the man MVP, like if he's playing MVP level, you gotta vote him again. But okay, so your top 5 is Jokic, Shea, Giannis, Tatum, and Doncic.
Okay, so AD's not on that list, but I feel like AD's really cooled from his hot start.
Yeah.
Donovan Mitchell gets no love for what he's doing in Cleveland.
Never.
Golly.
I got two.
Like Steph,
two right off the bat. Steph-ish, yeah, he could kind of be there. The two that I thought of, I was just looking at like I was more so looking at the top teams of each conference and picking a player that isn't really being talked about from each. So on the West, I thought of Ja. Memphis is the 3rd seed right now. Last year they're not even close to the playoffs. And the one big difference I could put a note on is, I mean, Bane was out for a chunk of the season, but Ja was out the entire season last year, and he's here now, and he has that team looking really good. They have one of the best offenses in the NBA right now. The advanced numbers don't really back it up. Like his on-off stuff isn't the greatest. His counting stats aren't the greatest. Like, I mean, they're pretty good. They're good, but they're not like what you would expect from like an MVP player. They're not Jokic. They're not like what Shea's doing. They're not like what Doncic is doing. They're not like what Tatum are doing. But even if the impact stats aren't saying so, I think what he brings to that team and what he's able to provide to just how they play each night can't go unnoticed and has to be rewarded in some light, because that team is really humming right now. I know when we started this season that we thought they would be better than what they were projected to be, but I didn't think I even thought that they'd be like a top 3 seed, and looks to be like sternly in that top 3 to 4 mix throughout the year. So I think Ja is one of those guys that should get a little bit of mention for MVP, even if he's not doing the traditional stat crazy stuff.
No, I think it's a great point and a great pick. Yeah, well done. I'm on board.
I got one.
I don't have anything bad to say about Ja. Like, I'm in agreement with you. And the biggest like the biggest indicator being like the last year to this year. Like 2 years ago, Memphis were a contender. Last year he's hurt. They're
Yeah,
a lottery team. This year he's healthy. They're a contender. Like, it's
yeah,
you talk about most valuable player. A lot of people like to bring it up to like, oh, most valuable player to their team. It's got to be like they got to mean a lot to their team to be most valuable player. Well, like, who means more than Ja to their team right now?
yeah. I think that's kind of evident at this point. And then on top of that, I think with Memphis, when you look at Memphis, they're also just really Jaren Jackson as well. He's playing at his defensive player level that we've known in the past. So I think that's been good as well. Been able to really contribute to winning basketball in a way that's meaningful again. I think he's also improved his efficiency as well. His efficiency, can vary at times, but I think this year he's focused well on like shooting the three ball, making those shots count, getting to the paint, and really taking that extra dribble to make sure to get into the paint and make himself more of a force in the paint, because he's big, he's athletic, he can dribble. So just making that more of a focus, and again, having Ja there to set him up makes things a lot easier. Makes you a lot more efficient, which I think is just more of a testament to Ja and his MVP case. I think the last player would be Karl Anthony Towns from the Knicks. A team that I think is at the top of the East right now. They did just lose to the Hawks, so they're out of the cup contention. But besides that, I think they've had a really good season. I think they've been a team that has been relied on Cat on the offensive end, especially, and with him on the court, they're slightly above average defensively, which is all you can ask for. All you can ask for when you have Cat on the court. If you can get to above average defense, slight above average defense, and have the offense that you're going to have with Karl Anthony Towns, I think you're doing something really well. And I think he's also deserving of one of those top spots if they're able to maintain the top seed in the East. I know you're going to be fighting with guys like Jason Tatum and Donovan Mitchell, who no one seems to mention. I nearly just forgot. But I think Karl Anthony Towns is another guy that I think can be recognized for his season that he's been having in New York.
I think Cat's had a great first season in New York. I don't agree that he's like MVP caliber, mostly because like I feel like New York is waiting for Mitchell Robinson to get healthy so that they can answer the question of whether or not they have someone to close games should Cat be getting run off the floor, right? Like you want a player who's not going to get like run off the floor because they can't play defense, but you don't want somebody who can only play defense who cannot help you offensively and get like a last minute bucket or something. And right now, like Karl Anthony Towns is not a guy that I feel very comfortable with at the end of the game if I'm defending, right? Like if I'm trying to hold on to a lead, I don't know if I want Towns on the floor. If I'm trying to catch and overtake, then yeah, like I kind of want him on the floor. Like I want him to be a chaser, if you will. So like I love motorsports. I watch a lot of motorsports. And they always talk about like it's different when you're chasing for a position versus defending the position, right? Like if you're the first car, if you're out front and you're defending the chasing pack, right? Like you're always just like going up to a level that you think is fast enough, like the fastest through the corner. But as a chaser, you always get the ability to go like 1 or 2% more, right? Yeah. And I feel like there are certainly race car drivers who aren't good running up front because they don't quite know where that limit is, right? And I feel like Cat's not comfortable playing with the lead because he's not as confident in his ability to hold the lead versus like I feel like he's very confident in capturing a lead. Like he knows how, like if the pressure's on, he knows his shot's gonna fall, right? Like, whereas like he knows how to be there offensively every time, right? And what to do offensively every time. Like it's that slight hesitation of, am I doing enough? Am I defending hard enough? Am I pushing hard enough in this particular moment to maintain my couple point lead? That I don't know if Cat really has. And that is the thing that would hold me back from him ever being a great defender, is really kind of like understanding where he can push towards the end of a game. Because I don't know if he's ever going to be great, like positionally. He's not the world's best athlete. He's far from a bad athlete, but he's not just going to like save the day athletically. Yeah. He's long. He's a big man, right? He's got long arms. He's super dexterous. Like there's a lot there that if he can just almost like, I feel like the only thing holding him back is a mental block. And it's that, I don't know if it's that confidence of just getting a couple of those wins where he's out front and defending, and just knowing that he can do it, or what. But like I don't feel 100% confident that he's the guy I want closing games in the playoffs.
Yeah, which is
unless like you're chasing unless you're chasing the lead, right?
Yeah, which is totally fair. Like I said, we've seen that last year where like things get tight, it gets a little bit shaky for Cat a couple times. So I think that's for sure. Brunson there kind of I feel like can offset that on offense, but again, the defensive side, you're looking at like OG, and we talk about how OKC has that big presence with Hartenstein. I think the Knicks need to find their version of that, whether it's Mitchell Robinson getting healthy, but I don't know what he's going to look like when he's healthy, or another player with they can just bring in to kind of offset some of those limitations that Cat has on that end of the court. But yeah, as it stands right now, they're one of the top teams in the East. If they're able to maintain that, I think between the two guys of Jalen, because remember before the season started, Jalen Brunson was on that list for MVP. People had him as like that's one of the guys that they predicted could win MVP. Was Brunson, but I think at the very least, I think we've established that I think Cat would be the main guy for that team, if they were to maintain a top seed in the East, 4th right now.
I think they're going to maintain the seeding. It's a weird team because it's a Tom Thibodeau team that does not feel like a Tom Thibodeau team, and the question becomes, when does the Thibodeau influence take over, right?
Yeah.
Or are we looking at a new Tom Thibodeau who is saying, look, I've had Karl Anthony Towns in the past. I coached him this one way. It didn't work. I'm going to coach him and this team this other way. And, maybe this time it works, right? But, Thibodeau's had enough history in the league to make us think that, he's going to start just demanding like some defenders, or at least some defensive options, some optionality, right?
Yeah.
But also like guys got to play better. Bridges has to play better,
Yeah. That's what it's what's going to come down to with this team. Especially since it's so thin, and they use so many options to get Mikal. So yeah.
Well, and it feels like kind of a jerkish thing to be like harping on Cat's defense when he is adding so much positive impact to the Knicks right now, whereas their other big acquisition has been replacement level, and we know he can be so much more on both ends, right? So at least like Cat is lived up to absolutely everything that he just built as an offensive player.
I think we're seeing like the drop off from Minnesota. Like we thought that Minnesota, when they made that trade, would be kind of like an evenish trade. It's taken Minnesota a while to kind of adapt to Julius Randle being over there.
Yeah.
And Devin Chandler hasn't really provided the punch that they necessarily thought he would. It's taken, we talked about it at the beginning of the season. We talked about it before the season. We talked about it start of the season. The change that Ant has to make to being the focal offensive engine has been tricky at times. And you've seen the frustration between him, Randall, and Rudy Gobert at times, just like that chemistry and how has been panning out. So I think at the least we see that he's done his job in New York, and you can see where his value has left in the Timberwolves as well, and how they struggled to kind of put that piece together.
Yeah, and maybe that's a good argument for Towns. It's just like, look, for all the problems that the Timberwolves had in the past, turns out Towns was a much smaller
issue
part of that than maybe we all kind of thought, right?
Yeah. It could be just one of those things. Maybe he could have moved Gobert instead, but you did so much to get him that it's kind of hard to just move on from him.
Trade him for Mikal Bridges.
Oh man, you're gonna send Cat insane. I just love this. Oh man. I think that's good on all these topics. We're, if not past an hour, close in on an hour. I don't know when this recording started, so yeah, we got a good amount of NBA talk into this one. Anything else before we head out?
Caitlin Clark was named the 2024 Athlete of the Year. I think it's well deserved.
Yeah, congrats to her. She brought a lot to that WNBA, a lot of eyes at the minimum to the WNBA, other factors as well. But she was tremendous in her first year. So shout out to her. WNBA coming to Toronto. We got Toronto Tempo.
Yeah, Tempo.
So that should be happening. Soon. But yeah, that'll do it for this episode of the NBA Hangout. You can follow us at the NBA Hangout on Twitter X. You can follow me at BJAY93_. You can follow Dave here every week. You can like and subscribe on Spotify, Apple, and find us on YouTube as well. Thank y'all. Peace.